And I think we're stepping into a quantum age. The boundary might still be very limited.
It could be so abundant for this world, but people's minds have to be ready for that. They have to be able to see it.
What if there's so much more out there? And what we've been doing, this buy low, sell high, this curve of our economy, what if the GDP of Japan or US or EU or other nations that are doing well could be 1,000x? This is just the beginning. Welcome back to Brokers of Secrets, episode 7. Now, we again have our awesome guest, Ken, here with us, our ultimate mental programmer. And I want to have him back because we're going to talk about some mental programs and mental programs of abundance. We're going to talk about also how your attitude impacts your mental programs and its actualization in your reality, right? How it impacts your results. So welcome back, Ken.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, glad to be here again. Oh, man, I love the topics of today, right? There's something that we can do for people that you can't find anywhere else. We can design programs. I mean, we can call them designer programs.
So many people just kind of address when there's a problem with the program. That's basically most everyone, right? There are very few people that are designing their program, not to mention doing designer program, kind of like a brand.
Yeah, think of like the
Louis
Gucci,
Vuitton,
the Louis
Gucci,
Vuitton version of
the
programs.
Christian Dior.
Yeah,
right?
the Ferrari version of programs. Like that's what we can do.
Yeah.
So this,
tell us more.
Oh man, this is exciting stuff, right? Because if someone's willing, like we talked about in the last episode, if they're willing to be flexible and say, maybe I don't have my facts straight. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe something's even better.
Maybe something's even better. Because look, there are people that are doing hundreds of millions or billions. They're like, what else could I do? This is the beginning. Keep going, please.
So then what we can do is we can have fun. We can start to play. We can look at the mind, be like, to what limit can we generate results in the reality? How much pleasure can you endure?
You know, I think a lot of people are running the heroes or the warriors mindset or programs when they're even growing to the $1 billion plus mark. They're not running the emperor program where things are more effortless. Everything's just naturally in there. I mean, maybe control's not the word, but it's an effortless control. Mm-hmm. Pleasurable rather than it's a hustle and a grind and a fight.
I'll tell you a story. So
yes.
A few years ago, I was going to go to a baseball game with my dad. Go watch, be spectators, have a good time, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of fun. And I was going to take my kids and my wife, and we're going to go to this game.
Baseball's important to your family.
Super important. My dad was a pro baseball player, my grandpa pro baseball player, and my great-grandpa pro, all of them. So it's super important to my family. In fact, my dad says, this is like a religion.
Okay.
It's not, but it's fun to enjoy.
Yeah.
So he called us up and he's like, let's go to this game. I'm like, cool. Issue was we didn't have tickets yet, right? And games sell out. Not always, but sometimes, right? And it's getting close to the time to go. And this story is for all those that are in a hurry. They're in a rush.
Oh, in a rush. That's a program.
Rush. Yeah. So it's the scarcity of time. I'm going to address this where you actually have an abundance. I'm going to debunk that you don't have time or that time is limited.
Please do.
This is fascinating right here. So I go up to my wife and she's in the middle of a project. She's building a chicken coop because we like to have animals on our property. We have an acre. We live up in the country in some mountains, have a great time. And she saw this YouTube video. She wanted to do it.
Okay.
So she's building it. She's really good, handy. She's good with her hands and everything. Way better than me.
Wow.
And she's building it. And I'm like, hey, it's time to go. We need to go and pay attention to my language. This is really important. I said, we need to go right now. And she goes, I don't want to right now. I want to finish my project. I'll leave when I'm done. And I responded this way. But if we don't go now, then we'll be late. We won't get tickets. and everyone will be disappointed and mad. Do you notice the language? Those are the facts that I'm giving her, the programs. And then I was just pissed, angry, right? Because I'm like, I'm not going to force her to stop her project, but like, if we don't leave now, we're not going to get tickets. We won't get in. Everyone's going to be disappointed. We'll drive for nothing. In a rush.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I went into my backyard. Like I said, I have some land, so I have some space to ponder. And I'm back there and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? What's really the issue here? I should not be feeling negative. I have a zero tolerance for feeling negative in my life. I don't just dismiss it. I learn from it, but I don't allow it to stay.
Attitude. This is for everyone out there justifying why their negative emotion should stay.
Exactly. Attitude. You change your attitude. You say, this is not allowed. You only allow the best in your house, right? And your house is your mind.
Attitude is not, I mean, especially it will have an impact not only in the short term, but a long-term thing, right? It controls how your mental program is expressed.
Oh, totally. Totally. So I'm in the backyard and I'm thinking, pondering, using my mind, mental work, right? And I go, I'm a slave to time. But is that really reality? And I had a question go in my mind. It was this: does time have consciousness? No, it doesn't. So does time exist if I'm not observing it? No, it doesn't. So its whole basis of existence depends on my observation of it. So is the time the master of me, or am I the master of time? And I decided right there, I'm the master of time. Time works for me. So I went to my wife.
All the time.
All the time. Time works for me, and it works all the time. I got that second part of the program after many experiences. But the first part is time works for me.
It's beautiful.
And I went to my wife.
This is a designer program.
This is a designer program. And if you guys test this out, I will guarantee you'll see it's true. It does not take much install because of the logic sequence I gave you. Time does not have consciousness. You have consciousness. And if you understand that, time only exists and expresses itself in the way that you observe it, your attitude, right? So then I go to my wife and I say, take your time. When you're done, we'll go. It'll work out just fine. And she's like, serious? You're not mad? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. Everything's fine. She's like, okay, I'll be done in 15 minutes. Whoa, it hurried her up. She was like, I'm not going to be upset too. I'm just going to get done and go. Whoa, that's already in effect. So I'm like, oh, serious? 15 minutes? She's like, yeah. So I grab the kids and I get them in the vehicle, and she finishes up and she comes in and we drive and we go to the game. As we're pulling up to the stadium, my father, who drove from a different city altogether, was at the left turn signal to go into the parking lot same time as us. We showed up exactly at the same moment, parked right next to each other. Amazing, right?
Indeed.
Now, funny part of the story, the whole time on the drive down, my 4-year-old son was yelling at me that he has to poop and he has to do it urgently. Right? This is an important detail, right?
Yeah,
this is important. So we show up there and I'm like, okay, let's go. So I unbuckle him and I take him over to the stadium and I run over there before anyone else because he's got to go. And I go up to the person selling tickets. And by the way, this is a college field. So there's a baseball field and a softball field combined. There's still tickets. I go up to the person, I say, are there any more tickets left for the baseball game? And she goes, no, we're all sold out. And I say, totally fine. I understand. He's got to poop. Can I go take him to the bathroom? And then I'll come right back out. You'll see me come right back out. She's like, yeah, that's fine. So I run him up to the bathroom. Funny thing, he said, I don't have to poop. So I'm like, why did you say that? But he didn't have to. I have no clue to this day why he played that whole game. we're talking about ripple effects and decisions, right?
Yeah.
So we come back down, and I say, on my way up there, I looked at the softball field. There's a game going, and nobody's in the stands. Do you have tickets to that? And the lady goes, we don't sell tickets for that. You can just go in free. Take in mind, the fields are connected. When you're in, right? So I go out to my family and I tell them, because I wanted the reaction, right? I say, tickets are sold out. And they're just like, oh no, this is awful. I can't believe it. And I go, hold on. I got us in. And they're like, what? Serious? I'm like, yeah, we're in for free. We don't even have to pay for tickets. So we went over to the game. We enjoyed the game the whole time.
That's a pure abundance story.
I wonder what would have happened if I rushed. I don't like to wonder too much about that. I like to enjoy that I was abundant with my time and the result that followed and what happened. But we create realities. We have choices, that responsibility. We can choose to respond to our circumstances in trillions of ways, like you said. Choose the one that's abundant. Choose the one that has a ripple effect of positivity, and you'll start seeing it. So this is a designer program. And once I saw it work hundreds of times, I've seen it work so many times. Like one of these times, I had a packed day of reprogramming. I had 5 minutes for lunch, 5 minutes total.
Oh.
And I went inside and I'm like, I'm just going to make a sandwich. So I made a sandwich. After the 5 minutes was up, it was time for the call, but I hadn't eaten my sandwich. And I said, does time work for me or doesn't it? I said, I'm just going to start eating the sandwich. So I just eat it. And then it's all the way gone. And then the person gets on the call. And they go, sorry, I'm late. I'm like, you're fine. You're all good. This has happened hundreds of times. Not that specific scenario, but in my life, always happens. So time works for me, and it works all the time. It's a double bind program that makes sure it stays consistent over and over. Now, this is important, right? It started out as a revelation, a breakthrough, a belief even. Then it became a program. And then the program validated itself in reality enough times where the structure became deeper and became absolute fact. Now that it's fact, I love it. I'm not changing it. We can build these designer programs for people.
Man, could you imagine people's lives? The suffering that are happening, not only at frankly, at any income level, right? But not only in the perceived sectors where they're the most stressed out, whether you call it the investment banking, the finance sector, the tech, but also real estate. People are suffering. This last year, so much have happened. And frankly, other industries too, and small businesses, and now there's the tariffs and all the things that are going on. People think either they're suffering or they think they're suffering. Either way, they're connected, right? Imagine if they could have designer programs and they can rip out all of those programs that are not serving them anymore. I think the issue here is people are not conscious. They're not aware they actually need to change their programs. They have become addicted to a false reality that doesn't serve them. And they justify all their actions and beliefs and attitude towards it. And they're like, oh, I'm a negative person, or, oh, things just don't work out. And back to our last episode, we talked about relationship. People are like, oh, I won't have abundance if I get married now, or if I have kids now, or what if I miss out? All of those things. Same with even job and businesses, right? They start one, they're like, oh, but what if there's a shiny object? I can build another business or do this other thing. All of that. Programs.
I like how you brought up suffering, because isn't suffering an attitude? It's not the circumstance.
Yeah.
That's what most people don't understand. They think the circumstances are the suffering.
Wasn't it in the origin story of Buddhism, Buddha discovered that he can meditate, he could release all of his worldly attachments, but it doesn't solve the suffering of the people, his people, right? But then, does one ask, what really is suffering?
That's
An
beautiful.
attitude. And so the population chooses to suffer as an attitude, chooses suffering as an attitude, rather than choosing pleasure as an attitude. I wonder what would happen to our economy, our GDP, and our world, I mean, frankly, international relations, if people choose pleasure, kindness, love as an attitude versus suffering, hatred, conflict.
We would no longer be struggling to survive. So all negative emotions are rooted in survival. They serve survival mechanisms. That's why they exist.
Which presupposes scarcity.
Which presupposes scarcity. So think about it, like anger, what does it do? It establishes boundaries. Why do there need to be boundaries? Because people are trying to take what you have. Scarcity. Think about fear. What does fear do?
Ooh, so much.
Protects you from loss. Presupposes loss. These are all things, mechanisms that humanity evolved with to survive. We don't live in a society anymore, at least in the US or developed countries, where that's that important. If people don't upgrade their minds now, they may not be able to understand the world they live in. Because the world they live in now is so extremely abundant. The opportunities are limitless. It's so incredible what someone can accomplish these days. If they haven't updated their mental programs around abundance and what's possible, they'll never see it. They'll never perceive it. And they will be living in the illusion that they have to survive. Now, when there's millions of people projecting the same thing, then it causes ripple effects in the economy, right? In the collective understanding. But even one person that decides to change that perception, they can see a different reality for them. Now, the mission at Upgrade is not just for one person, right? It's to change the ripple effect collectively. And just imagine what would happen if the projection from every person was from a state of thriving, not surviving.
You know, let's take Japan for an example. Birth rate's dropping massively. And I read somewhere the population dropped by like 890,000, I think, last year.
That's insane.
Yeah, that is insane. And granted, they have 120-ish million people, but that's almost 1 million people gone. Almost. In like 1 year, right? They're not replacing people fast enough. Replacing might not be the right word, but replacing the population numbers. They're not having kids. Well, that's not just Japan. Look at South Korea. Look at, frankly, Europe. Look at a lot of places around the world. What's paradoxical is these are abundant nations. Mm-hmm. But the nations that are in scarcity are rapidly increasing in population, which I find to be very interesting. What do you think that is?
That's fascinating. That's very fascinating. I think that there is programming that happens even in the abundant nations that says there's not enough for everyone.
Bingo. Just like the wealthy, the super rich believe people are there to take their money.
Yes.
Just like the monarchs of the past thinking their brother, sister, mother, whoever is trying to take their throne. Same scenario gets passed down to even today. The mega wealthy thinks they could lose tomorrow. They want to keep. They want to not lose, right? And the wealthy citizens of wealthy nations are thinking, if I got married and have kids, I'm going to lose. How much is it going to cost? From diapers to formula to housing to extra food and extra whatever, right? Not understanding that abundance is a state, an attitude. And that the programs can be modified. Therefore, their reality can be modified. And then let's just say the less developed or the developing countries, they find themselves having more kids as wealth, because for millennia and beyond, we have attached that value to having more family members as a way to building wealth, and is sustained in these nations. And so they grew their population, right? And so my curiosity becomes, who decided that there was a limit on resources?
Now, who did specifically is less important than everyone taking responsibility and changing.
Well,
and it is an interesting question, but the change will happen when people take the responsibility back.
And the reason I say who, I'm not saying actually a one person.
Well, it's collective. Yeah, it's true. So I have a designer program for this. It's called, and there's a reason I have 5 kids.
Yes.
It's because, first of all, I love them and I enjoy them thoroughly.
I don't think people understand how much love one can express this or feel in their hearts until they experience that. Keep going.
Oh man, it's a game changer. The program though is this. Every time I have a kid, my income will double.
Mm-hmm.
And my free time.
But you gotta have more kids.
Look at that. What does everyone say? Oh, it's just going to be more work and more money. I'll have less time to do things I want to do. Doesn't have to be that program. What if with every kid you had, you doubled your income and had more free time, double free time?
I think Japan would, in no time, be repopulated.
And rich.
Yeah, even wealthier. Ooh. You know, the game would be so much more fun. The game of economics would be so much more fun instead of seeing this. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, right? Buy low, sell high, all that stuff. That's great. I am just curious. The boundary might still be very limited.
Yeah.
What if there's so much more out there? And what we've been doing, this buy low, sell high, this curve of our economy has simply just been at the bottom of what we could be doing as a human civilization. What if the GDP of Japan or US or EU or other nations that are doing well or whatever could be 1,000x? And I think we're stepping into a quantum age where things are heading that way. And you know, I just shared with you a video on Instagram where there's a factory in China that can make a phone every second, fully autonomous. It's dark. There's no workers, just robots. Every second there's a phone. And that's just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
That's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. It could be so abundant for this world, but people's minds have to be ready for that. They have to be able to see it. Now, what you brought up with the economy is that's the scarcity model of the economy. We're not seeing something that could economize interstellar life. We're not seeing that yet. And it's because the consciousness of everyone that is around hasn't expanded the vision of what's possible. What could happen in 100 years, 1,000 years? What could happen even tomorrow? They may not even have the understanding level because they haven't done the mental work to consider. Now, one of the issues that I notice most people have is they have the problem of lack of consideration, where they just haven't sat down and considered, where's the world moving to? What do I want? What do I want to see? Use my imagination and see something even grand, more amazing, more abundant. Someone starts doing that, their standards increase. Now, here's a definition that I think is essential for people. It's the way I define what a standard is. Yeah, this isn't the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition.
Yeah.
A standard, well, let me ask this to you first.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difference between a standard and a goal?
Well, what I've observed, including myself, is that when I set a goal, I know it's a goal. I don't have to have it.
Oh.
Right? And that I have a certain tolerance of how much of the goals I have to achieve and how some of them don't have to be. So I let myself off. But when it's a standard, you can't violate it. It's what the bare minimum. But it's not also not like truly bare minimum. It's what you need, right? So what you need versus want. And I think people go way farther for what they need than what they want.
Absolutely. But this is the way I'd define it. A standard is a goal that's become unconscious.
Oh, I like that.
And what that means is that it will be executed automatically by the subconscious mind.
An inevitable event.
Inevitable. So whatever income level you're at, normally, that's your standard. In fact, I was talking with someone and he's like, I have all these accounts receivable I want to collect, but they're not coming in. How come I'm not collecting them? And I said, why do you need the money? What do you need it for? And he couldn't answer the question. And I said, do you think your life would be more exciting if you had it? And he's like, I'm not sure. I said, how exciting is your life right now? Scale 1 to 10. He's like an 8. I was like, tell me about that. That's pretty high. He's like, oh, I had a dope vacation recently. Like, I went to this awesome place, had catered food, private chef, went fishing in the middle, did everything I loved, and closed $200,000 deals on the vacation. I'm like, so you don't need that extra money. You can just give it to me if you collect it. That's fine. And he's like, oh, yeah, I don't see the need. I'm like, your issue is you have a first-class experience, but you don't have the private jet experience because you haven't considered what that would be. So the standards are too low. The attitude about your standards is very important. You should always be pushing what your standards should be. And I'll say this about health, another designer program. Every time I invest in my health, I increase my income. Every time. Now, this is actually, it runs with the most important programs of the unconscious mind, which is to preserve and run the body. And if, when you invest in your health, so for example, we made a commitment in my family that we would only eat organic fruits and vegetables and clean sourced meat and quality ingredients that had no additives, preservatives, or toxins inside of them. The food bill quadrupled. What happened though? I made that commitment and my income went way up. Now here's the key. It's because the goal of the subconscious is to make you as healthy as possible. So if you commit to health, you should see the resources come in to support that goal. Attitude about your health. Think about that, right? So these designer programs go and help you maintain an attitude as well, right? Think about my time. It's like, oh, we don't have enough time for this. I'm like, oh, hold on. That's not my attitude. Time works for me. It works all the time. I'm in charge. Right? Think about the health. Oh, I'm going to pay $3,000 for supplements and aminos. That's a lot of money. Wait, hold on. That's not my attitude. Every time I pay this, I make more money. Okay, let's do it.
This brings up the topic of how many people have bills left unpaid, right? And some of those go unconscious. And I've experienced this too. I've had bills that all of a sudden I remember, I'm like, oh crap, I should have reminded myself, I should have set a reminder. The moment I paid them, money floods in. It's like an unlock.
It's like a designer program too. As soon as so I had someone, I worked with them and we talked about this. And we designed this program and installed it, which by the way, you're listening to this podcast. I wish I could tell you how to do this on your own. Yeah. It's just something you'd have to come to Upgrade and do. I told him, I said, let's design these things out. And one of them was every time I pay a bill, I make double what I paid in return. Yeah? And he tells me the story. He's sitting in the dentist's office and he didn't have dental insurance, but he needed a root canal. And your teeth are safe and healthy and awesome.
Yes, all of ours.
All our teeth are awesome. And he's sitting there sweating because he's like, do I do this? It's expensive. A root canal? So much money. Then he remembered his program, his attitude. He said, no. I said, when I pay a bill, I make double in return. So he goes up to the lady at the front and she's like, okay, do you want to pay it in full? Do you want to do payments? I know it's a lot of money. He says, no, I'm paying it in full right now. He pays it in full. Then he gets a text message that he just landed a $40,000 deal, which he gets a decent sized commission. It was well over double what the root canal cost. Happened immediately, like that. Your attitude helps project what you decide. Whatever you decide your programs are, your attitude will solidify that decision and make the program deeper installed and make it more real and more factual.
Yeah, your attitude, it's a way you communicate to your subconscious. Do I want to solidify this or not? Mm-hmm. Right? If someone's pissed off about some small losses, worried, fearful, they're solidifying doubt of abundance, right? I shared this story last night at dinner. That's a pretty fun story. I'll share it quickly. And I think that the audience will find it to be useful. So I told my wife early on, I'm like, hey, every time I buy a car, we make more money. And it's a program I wanted to be true. At the time, I didn't know if it was true or not. I was just making things up in my head, right? This is the beginning of me understanding, can I design what I want and then have it actualize? And then I would buy a car. My very first car that I really wanted was, back then it was an Audi. Got the Audi. My income increased. I was like, oh, it's working. And then we went and bought a Range Rover. Income increased. So it's working again. I bought a 911 GT3. Income went up again. I was like, this is wild. And I even went, and here's the thing. The day I bought the GT3 was the same day I closed on a house. My very first house way back. And I remember people were like, are you crazy? Like, you just bought a house. Why are you buying a car that the payments were more than the mortgage? And I was like, because this is what I want. And when I buy a car, I make more money. When I buy a house, I make more money. Fast forward. And since then, like, my love for car has, continued. And one day I speaking of dental work, I decided, you know what, my parents, they've been good to me. I remember when I first came to the States, they didn't have the money. They went and refinanced the house, right? And their program was Scarcity, but still they went and refinanced the house to take money out to send me, to allow me to do what I wanted. I was like, wow, I'm grateful. So I'm gonna go and do something nice for them. And I've been looking at their teeth for a long time. Not just looking. They would tell me that even my father couldn't eat broccoli, steamed, really soft broccoli. He couldn't chew it, and without pain.
Wow.
And my mother would get migraine from her toothache.
Oh, man.
Like, this was going on for like a decade or more. And I'm like, I know the implication of what happens if dental work is not done and if there's potential inflammation that are worse than, or infection. We're all safe and healthy here. I was like, the worst could happen from dental, not taking care of dental, the mouth. And I'm like, all right, I got to do this. I think that by doing this, I'll extend my parents' life probably at least 20 years.
Wow.
So I went and got quotes, right? But I knew how much to expect. I just didn't expect it to be costing the same as a Porsche 911 Turbo S, but you don't get to finance it. You got to pay for it in full. So I'm like, holy cow, right? And it was at a pivotal point of my business, and I was also moving to Arizona, and there wasn't as much cash, but I'm like, my parents' life versus my little bit of scarcity, I'm like, I'm letting go of the scarcity.
20 years of extra life is worth everything.
Yeah, I was like, there's no chance I'm going to even allow myself to have that scarcity. I'm going to make the money. So long story short, I said, all right, I'm committing to it. My parents said no many times. I'm like, no. It's a gift. We're going to do this. I found a great guy, a great dentist, phenomenal human, phenomenal. I mean, he's one of the world's best surgeons. And he gave him the most incredible care. And then now, during this process, the reason I'm telling this is because during this process, I remember I was like, I need to take my parents from Arizona to Utah, and it's like a 10-hour drive. We could fly, but I needed to pick up some stuff because I was moving. I was going to drive my truck up. And then my truck had a check engine light on the morning before. And my wife was like, don't drive it. I'm like, it's just a check engine light. It'll be fine. She's like, no, I have a bad feeling about this one. Don't do it. I was like, what? She's like, you're not driving across town. You're driving 10 hours. I don't want you to be stranded in the middle of the road, right, somewhere. And I'm like, okay, terrible projection, but let's not even go there. Let's resolve it. I'll see if we can get it in today. Called around. Nope. So I said to my wife, I'm like, let's go to the dealership. Let's buy a new truck. She's like, why don't you just fly? It's way cheaper than buying a new truck.
This is in the middle of everything else.
Yeah,
like
middle of all of this. So that's additional context, right?
Oh, man.
So my wife's like, you're crazy, right? You're going to buy a new truck just to drive them up and pick things up. You can leave stuff in storage, and plus you just spent all this money on dental, plus we're moving, plus, the business is growing. You got money on payroll, like all of those things. We were not fleshed on cash.
Oh, but it's such an attitude play. It's, do you decide that there's a limit of how much money you can have or not?
That moment I said, we're going to go to the dealership, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I were going to get another truck, it's going to be a truck I really want. Again, I only bought trucks I wanted in the past, but this time is like the one I really wanted. It's the Raptor, the Ford 150 Raptor. I was like, I really want that. And they're like, oh, we don't have any in inventory. I was like, is there any coming? He's like, oh, there's one coming next week. I'm like, well, but that won't do me any good for tomorrow. And then I was like, do I want it? I still want it. So I put a deposit down, right? And then I go home and I look at the inventory, and I'm like, I see the silver one that was available. So I call the guy. I'm like, hey, I thought you said you have none. He's like, yeah, that one's sold. I'm like, okay, well, people change their mind all the time, right? And if they do change their mind, you're going to call me and I'm going to buy it because I'll take it right away, right? He's like, okay, sure. Not expecting that, but, we'll call you. Sure enough, the next morning, I got a call, right?
This is great.
Now, the attitude continued to perpetuate, right?
Yeah.
I got a call, and they're like, hey, you want it? I'm like, I'm already on my way to Utah, but I'll turn around. This is the car I want, right? Teeny bit of obstacle, not even, right? It was perfect. Got there, exactly the color, everything I wanted.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, this is where a story gets interesting. So I'm like driving my parents up to spend more money, and then I got to Utah at like 10:30 at night. My wife calls me. She's like, all right, where's the money? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, every time you buy a car, you make more money. Where is the money? And I'm like, babe, I just got here. Can you give me like a day? She's like, no, every time you buy a car, you make more money. Why does it have to weigh a day?
This is great.
When your partner holds you accountable.
Yeah.
When this is happening.
It's going to work.
And I deliberately put her through training so that she can hold me accountable in times of weakness, right?
Yeah.
And so, I said, babe, like, can you give me like till tomorrow? She's like, no. You need to know where the money's coming from now. I need to know, right? And I'm like, all right. I'm sure somebody. She's like, that's not good enough. Who? She's helping me search in my unconscious, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I have an idea. Let me text someone. And the only thing I said in the text was something along the line of, you ready? ? And the response I got back was, how did you know? And then I later on, well, I'll tell the later on part in a minute. And then 1 hour later, I got $100,000 sent to our account
That's incredible.
at 11:30ish.
How much was the truck?
It's about 100K.
What?
But I put like 10K down.
Oh.
And then I had the trade in, so it was less than 100. I mean, it was more than 100, but then I got trade in and all that, so around 100. And then I only put down 10K.
Wow.
So I got 100K cash
Wow.
that evening. Now, here's where things get interesting. I found out from the gentleman who joined us. He said his wife asked him, how did William know we got paid like 400 grand today?
Wow.
It was remote viewing. He said it must be the remote viewing. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe remote viewing certainly increased the ability to be more sensitive to the data, more intuitive. And yet it was my wife who prompted the question, who? And oftentimes within our own subconscious, we have a database, a predictive algorithm that can basically tell you, based on your programs, your attitudes, who you need to talk to. But it's just that our attitude sucks most of the time. Our, meaning the collective, right? And then also our mental program sucks. So the two limit our experience of reality. But when you begin to expand that to an abundance attitude, because abundance is really a state and an attitude, and then install programs that support it. Because people are like, oh, why can't I just be abundant? I'm already an abundant person. I'm brave. I'm courageous. I make big moves. And then they're crying in their closet wondering why they can't pay their bills, or that they're in a big, who knows what problem, right? In the millions, or they're getting a divorce, look, nothing wrong with any of those. It's just that their mental programs is going to express it, and their attitude is not strong enough to change the mental programs. They need both. They need the mental programs. On top of it, they need the attitude to drive the mental programs.
Absolutely.
So, and I know you said this earlier, there are some things that we can teach on the podcast, and everything we share today, people should definitely reflect on them, because that alone should be a game changer if people are paying attention. And we gave away on how to design these programs too, and how to understand what these attitudes and this relationship with programs, what some of the installation, what it requires, it's not so much, can I explain to you how to build a car here? Yeah, I'm going to explain everything I can. That being said, building a car, do you really want to build your own Ferrari, or it's actually cheaper to just go buy the Ferrari?
Well, I mean, I'm here in town filming a new curriculum for the company called Upgrade Self. And it's all about how to take someone from scarcity to abundance. And through trial and error and working with people, we figured out the formula.
Well, the good news is
quite
also
simple.
one more thing about that is we didn't just start from ground zero, trial and error. We built it on the shoulders of giants, many of the greatest mental programmers, gurus, teachers, educators, experts, psychologists. We built it on their patterns. And so the trial and error we ran, we were able to go at quantum pace.
Yes, absolutely. There was an abundance of knowledge behind it as well. Now that we've iterated it and seen iterations of what we do, we can see predictable patterns of how people move predictably from scarcity into abundance.
That right there. One thing that we may or may not have mentioned is that the ability to increase predictability also is attached to how we have stripped away any of the non-essentials, any of the fluffs, any of the things that are just woo-woo or the jumping up and down. And not that it doesn't matter. It changes the states. It helps, but it's not the substance. The actual programs are mathematical. And if we can get precise like that, it decreases physical effort and it increases predictability, which is what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really something you have to experience to see that change. And it's predictable to us. We've seen it happen hundreds, if not thousands of times. your life will be massively different with an attitude of abundance.
Now, I'll say this last thing then, as we finish up this episode. One thing that helps with attitude greatly is surround yourself with people that have like-minded programs that you want and attitudes that you want. And that's why we created the other upgrade programs called Upgrade Others and Upgrade World. And we run events for all of them. But Upgrade World, we run these really elite level events around the world. We have one coming up in Monaco in the summer of this year. We have one that's coming up in Tokyo, in Japan next year. We have one that's going to come up, it's going to be in Iceland. We have ones around the world. We're also planning one potentially in Hong Kong. So, and then there will be another one in Europe again. And anyway, why? Because we want to take you to certain places with unique energy. Like Monaco, for example, people are never in a rush. And there is so much money. This is one of the few places in the world where there's so much money and no rush. So much money, people are at ease. They expect because they breathe money. And so being able to install that in an environment rather than in their little hometown, I don't know, somewhere in the world that may not be full of abundance, this will make not only our job easier, but we can help the participants absorb all of the energy, not only of the others in the group where they get to network with high-level individuals, but also they get to absorb the entire environments program. So great news is for those of you who are interested in not only the change of attitude, but also the reprogramming. Definitely, if you find yourself interested, you can reach out to us. But this episode is to be shared, not because we want to tell you about our program, but because the things that we've shared, you'll find if you don't understand the relationship between these two, you may not be living the best, most ultimate version of your reality. We'll see you in the next episode.